So when we unveil the host from the tabernacle and partake in the Eucharist, are we entering into a marriage covenant with Christ?
You are consummating the marriage at that point, because the two become, you're in communion with Christ at that point. That's why you have to be in a state of grace. Because God does not dwell in, if you will, dirty temples. You know what I'm saying? What did Jesus do at the start of his ministry? Cleanse the temple. What did he do at the end of his ministry?
Cleanse it.
He cleansed it. Jesus bookmarked his whole ministry on cleansing the temple. We should approach the Eucharist in the same way, because he is coming to dwell within us. We need to be in as much a state of grace as we possibly can. We need to be holy vessels for him, because what would happen to the high priest if he was not right with God during the Day of the Atonement and he went behind the veil of the curtain? He died. He was struck dead. What does St. Paul say has happened to some of the early Christian believers because they have not judged their hearts correctly during communion?
They died.
They got sick and died. Do you think there's any relationship here? It's calling us to a level of holiness that we need to be very aware of. But it's also, now that's, if you will, kind of the negative way of looking at it. On the positive element of it, what Jesus is calling us to do is he's calling us to share in his life and his divinity, which is what St. Peter says is our ultimate goal, that we become partakers of his divine nature. Where do we get a taste of that, literally? During communion. We become partakers of his divine nature, because Jesus, in the form of the Eucharist, and I become one. However brief, however intense that is, that's why after communion you should be in deep meditation on what's going on at this point. And in awe of the fact that the God of the universe has chosen to share this vessel. This is why at the end of Mass, the priest or the deacon will say, Mass is ended. Glorify God with your lives. Thanks be to God. Because we have been filled with his presence. We move into the world as tabernacles of Jesus' presence to wherever we go. Yes? That's the deeper mystery that we're talking about here. And it's by feeding on his body and blood that we become his body and blood into the world. And we ourselves are transformed, if you will, metamorphosed into his image. Glory to God. What a privilege to be at this time. Do you realize the Old Testament prophets longed to see this day and never saw it? Oh, how they saw it only in a glimpse or in a veil themselves.